Imagine a world in which each home has its own power generator that obtains its energy in such a way that no fuel has to be added. Imagine every vehicle being able to run without ever stopping for fuel. Imagine each appliance having its own power source that never has to be recharged. That is the world of the future. Join with us now as we track our progress towards such a world.
Well, good evening, and welcome to Scarecrow Labs. It's January 30th already. Well, Sterling, sir, this is your time, so I'm going to go ahead and give you full screen. Let's take it away.
All right. Quite a few interesting things this week. Hard to decide what's going to come first as a head story, but I'm going to go with the one we just barely put up about an hour and a half ago. We had a representative from Brazil, my associate Fernando Lins, went down and visited Evolution Energy there in northern Brazil. He's not too far from there, just a few-hour drive, and he was able to witness for himself their 169 kilowatt output being powered from a 12-volt battery through a 2,000-watt inverter that was being measured as putting out 1,650 watts on the input side, which is over 100 times over unity. That's not bad. He checked for hidden wires, looked over, under, got a tour of the facility, looking for hidden, Tesla coils or whatever, wireless communication of electricity. And get this. The load that they were using for the output was a 3/4 inch iron pipe or rod that was getting very hot. I guess, I don't know if they were throwing it to ground or what, but that's kind of funny. And the clamp on ammeter, in accidentally touching the pipe, got burned, melted a little bit. That's actually the second verification report. The first one we kind of didn't mention. We put links up on the site for Evolution Energy. If you Google PESWiki and Brazil, the first link I think that comes up is Evolution Energy, and in Brazil and Portuguese, Evolution, C-O-E-S, which is shun sound in Brazil, and Energia is the name of the company. Back in December 12th, they did an off-grid measurement, because some people were wondering, with this over unity that they're getting, that maybe they might be tricking the meters, that somehow they're pulling energy from the grid inadvertently, pulling, and the meters were just not picking it up. And so that's when they sent me the data from the tests that they did with a 12-volt battery, getting similar to results of what I just reported. And the company is, we posted photos from Fernando. I should mention I met him, he flew down and met me when I was in Sao Paulo in July of last year. Took me to see his investment banker nephew, super posh bank that we went to. It was one of the high-end buildings in the town. I would imagine, not that I saw a lot of Sao Paulo, but I'm guessing that it's in the upper 1% of the bell curve of sky rises in the city. And really, really nice place. I met him then. We have shared the same birthday, November 30th, had dinner together. And so that's when I met him. And so when we found out about this company in northern Brazil, we're looking for some translators, because Nilsson and his associate down there that don't speak English and none of their associates do, and so they get all these emails from the English-speaking world, and they're kind of at a loss. And so Fernando raised his hand and said he'd be glad to provide some translation services, and he's been doing a great job. There's been quite a few things going on under the radar down there that I've been aware of. Pretty exciting. We've got them in number 3 position in our top 5, and that's probably conservative. They may pop up the number 1 fairly soon here. None of the 3 are officially in the marketplace where you can plunk down money and buy something, so that we've been able to validate. We've had a number of people claim to have things for sale, but when we ask to get some kind of validation of people going in and buying one and getting one and installing it, that hasn't happened yet. So the top 3 are kind of, or even 4 are a toss-up right now. They're all neck and neck. And so we've got them in number 3 position. And I like I said, I mean, this unit is scalable. It's only, I mean, we're talking, just to look at the photographs, it's 1.5 feet wide, maybe 1 foot high, maybe 2 feet deep. It's small. 200 kilowatts? That's amazing. I got a call from a guy this week that claimed to have a 20 kilowatt system about that size, and you know, we're checking into that. He took it apart. He needs to get it back together so we can go validate. But anyway, that's pretty amazing. That's not quite like the 10 megawatts in 1 cubic foot that Blacklight claims that they'll be able to get when they're done with.
Well, before you get off to Blacklight now, on this one, what is the source of the input energy? Where is the energy coming from, or what are they converting some kind of chemistry or what?
This is solid state, no moving parts on this one. And if I remember right, they've actually got 4 different genres. And
is there rotating mechanism?
Not in this one. This one is solid state. They
so
call this.
Are they claiming to be receiving cosmic rays, or what? I mean, what do they think is the source of the energy that they're converting? Here's
the description on our PezWiki page. They call it the Earth Electron Captor, or the Free Space Electron Captor, electric generator, depending on how it's configured. They have 4 different patents that they've filed. One of them is a Cumogen, and one of them is this solid-state system that's basically, Carl Paulsness calls it out as an end machine, Bruce De Palma, looking at the patent. So for what that's worth.
All right, but bottom line is we've got a solid-state gizmo here with no moving parts. Is there an aerial that's extended very high, like maybe a couple 100 feet up, or, you know, I'm trying to get a picture in my mind of how the energy flows into and out of this thing.
I don't know. The scientists can play with that one. Whether it's Earth's magnetic field or whether it's something else, scalar, don't know.
It sounds a lot like, you know, Bearden's Meg, which of course turned out to be very disappointing. I mean, just about everybody who attempted to replicate that design, including myself, failed miserably. So, you know, is there any independent evaluation on this one? I mean, do we have anything we can look at where we can get some independent validation? Because it sounds too good to be true, and usually when something sounds too good to be true, it's not true.
They're in process of getting that. At a university, it can't disclose more than that, but there is something in the pipeline to get a top university, actually national laboratory, to check into that. And so this was basically a precursor to that.
Well, still, you know, fascinating report, very interesting. You definitely got my antennae up on that one. I hope we'll get a follow-up report when there is some independent validation that these guys are for real. I mean, obviously, you know, once we get a chance to look up the magician's sleeve, we might find a whole deck of cards up there. We just don't know. But right now, that's a very tantalizing report. Very interesting.
Yeah, and, you know, the report that they gave was something they did last December 12th. And then this one is nominally independent because Fernando is not officially part of their company. He does have a vested interest in the outcome of this, and so in that regard, he's not untainted as far as independent. You might want to call that. But the upcoming test, this was basically a precursor to the next step, which is to put out the money to bring him to university to get some really high-end independent tests, and then no skeptics will be able to poo-poo it.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get you off track. You were just about to get into our, friends up in New Jersey. So what's the deal on them?
Actually, they're not the number 2 in the list of leading stories this week. So let me jump back to number 2 now, which is, and believe it or not, what I just told you trumps what I'm about to tell you. Okay? Andrew Ross, we've been tracking him since January 2011, 3 years ago. On the 14th, he announced at a press conference of this cold fusion technology. He had 5 to 10 kilowatts that he demonstrated, and a bunch of us, especially me and Frank Ackland's, really stepped up to the plate to really keep track of what's going on there. We've been getting somewhere around 20 to 50 stories a week from the alternative media. Sometimes the mainstream media chimes in. A lot of different developments. This week we had a major milestone. Andre Rossi's ECAT was acquired, and a press release was put out by a company called Industrial Heat LLC, which is a subsidiary of Cherokee Investment Group. And this is a U.S. group that is extremely credible. You go to their website, you see their credentials, $2 billion, okay? They have put up for different projects that they've looked into. They are on the cutting edge looking at green technologies, and they did their due diligence, had independent testing, went to Italy themselves, saw things for themselves, and they bought in and signed on, and this has been percolating for many months. They have a relationship with the Chinese to manufacture. There's a lot going on. Andrea Rossi is taking a back seat as the business goes. He is now the chief scientist, and Industrial Heat LLC is now in the driver's seat of taking this thing to market. This is a huge announcement, and it actually got some mainstream press, most of it skeptical, and the Scientific American, Popular Science kind of came in snarky and saying, referring to Andrew Rossi as being a scam artist and yada yada yada, and not taking into account that he was acquitted on some charges that were leveled against him on his thing that he had going with the waste to energy thing a few years back. Totally misinformed. I see it's grounds for some lawyers to get involved with some stuff, and I hope they do, because a company with that much finesse or that much credibility, Popular Science, should have a little better job of reporting. You would expect that kind of slop from somebody in the alternative media who doesn't have the resources to do their fact-checking. They were really sloppy, and it's really sad. I hope lawyers go after them big time. And so anyway, Andrew Rossi looks like we're being majorly vindicated. He's been in our top 5 for pretty much the whole time that we've been tracking him. I took him off for a little bit, a few months, about 2 years ago, when we had some questions about, some, and finally we reassessed and looked at things again and put him back in the top 5, and he's been there. I think deserves it, and the reason he's not in #1 position is because he's not really out there selling things yet. He's got that 1 megawatt supposedly available for $1.5 million. Don't know what the status of that is. I sent a whole bunch of questions to one of the guys who was listed as a contact on the press release, and I got a simple response back saying basically that he couldn't say any more than what's in the press release. He appreciates the work that we're doing, and stay tuned kind of thing. So I didn't get any information about what does this mean with the existing licensees, because basically the whole world was set up under manufacturing license rights. And I don't know what's happening to those licensees and where they fit in. I have seen some kudos. The group over in Italy, can't remember the full name, Prion. Anyway, the licensee over in Italy gave them an attaboy for the press release. Congratulations. So I'm guessing, also heard from down under Roger Green. He basically saying that the licenses are still intact, the best that he knows. And so apparently there's some hand-holding that needs to take place with what's already taken place versus what needs to go from here on out. But this is huge. So we're getting moving forward and upward in this exotic free energy technology, getting closer to being vindicated on a lot of different fronts. The next one, Blacklight Power, as you mentioned, had their demonstration this last week on the 28th. That was 2 days ago. And they're claiming that they'll be able to get 10 megawatts in 1 square foot once they get this thing engineered into a workable device. And I have a hard time believing that. I would think that they'd be fine with a shipping container sized device. A 20-foot shipping container would be on a conservative end by the time you have to do the heat dissipation for 1 megawatt of heat that's being produced at 90% efficient. And that does have some moving parts, but basically the demonstration was as he described it was going to be when I interviewed him last, about a week and a half ago. Basically he described the process, he gave some facts, they did a demonstration, a little pop bang thing in some water, taking measurements before and after, some calorimetry to see how much energy was produced. So you take an
so this was a pop bang thing. This was not an extended period of time.
Correct,
So,
and that's why I wanted to have the interview with Randy Mills to ask the question, what are you going to be showing? Because a lot of people thought that he was going to be showing this 10 megawatt, and my read of the press release was that that was under development. It's not something they had ready to go yet.
yeah, because I mean, all you got to do is dump a big capacitor bank into something, and you can get a big pop bang that looks impressive but really doesn't do anything. So have we had any? Obviously, it looked like this was a closed viewing. It looks like only people in Cadillacs and pulled up in limousines were invited to see this thing. Do we have any independent science on this that indicates that what they showed was really unusual?
They have 4 independent reports available on their website for anyone to read. If you take the time to do it, people that have, universities and others who have taken a look and vindicate. One of those was there and spoke at the press conference, gave their thumbs up to what was going on, Rowan University, and basically thumbs up to the hydrino theory and model as verified by the science that they're observing. And what they'll be able to do, according to the interview I did with him, is by putting 2 rotating discs, about 60 teeth on each disc, and I guess they're about 6 inches each or smaller. They rotate those at 200 RPM, and as they come together, you have about a millimeter by a centimeter thick of the gear thickness, and then a triangle shape that becomes your reaction chamber. And at the smallest approach, they then hit it with their high intensity arc, create a plasma that goes out at supersonic speeds and goes through, I can't remember what the process is, it goes straight to electricity. And at about a 90% efficiency. So supposedly spinning, you get about a 1 microsecond duration of each of those reactions taking place as this thing's spinning 200 RPM with 60 times on it. And so that's where you get the continuous output of electricity is, you have that pulsing going on at 1 microsecond duration, creating a lot of energy, and then the accumulation of that ongoing is 10 megawatts on that size of a device that they have. And they have an animation on their site, a graphic animation of what that would look like, where the energy would be, where the water would be, where the heat dissipation systems would be, where the energy is pulled off, and the names of the processes. He described that in the interview that I did with him. The first interview was a little better. He went into a little more detail on it. The second one was okay. I didn't have my recorder turned on the first time around. Bless his heart, he did a second time around with me. But he just basically described that whole process in the press conference and cited the references and the reasons why this is for real. As far as the person that was there, according to Frank Ackland, a guy named Steve Menton who attended, gave a report. He didn't see any mainstream reporters there. I was thinking that maybe CNN would be showing up. There was one video camera going the whole time, which is kind of sad. Had I been there, I would have tried to do a live broadcast using their internet connection and going through like Ustream or something like that, or even YouTube. They can do a live broadcast. I would have liked to have been there. We had the money and the offerings to get me over there, and that didn't materialize. Frank Ackland was hoping to go, and he wasn't invited. So as you said, it was mainly just suits and people, lots of money, and licensed interests that were there. If there was media, they haven't shown up yet in the media, in the news. I've been tracking the blacklight on Google News, and nothing's shown up yet. So the only thing that's been reported so far is Frank Ackland's publication of Steve Mitten's report yesterday. And it was it gave us basically a heads up of what took place, which is what we were expecting. But it's a letdown. No photographs yet, no video. So had I been there, we would have had all that stuff up by now. We would have had a story, would have had a video, we would have had live coverage. I don't know why they didn't let me come in. Moving on, we got yesterday up, or actually last night, with today's date, the Alien Art of Market Weekly, our report on the latest developments in the cold fusion world. And of course, as I mentioned already, the headline story was Industrial Heat acquiring the ECAT tech. And then the interview with Devkalian, Alex Xanthalos, the CEO, talking about his technology, their technology. They're a spin-off of Andrea Rossi. They're hoping to be to market by summer, and that they'll be producing electricity less than 1 cent per kilowatt hour. Also, Mike McCubre did an interview with Sean Stone, the son of Sean Stone's himself a producer, a movie director, etc. He does a regular show, and did an interview with Mike McCubre, a video interview. Mike was in California. I recognized his office from when I interviewed him 2-3 weeks ago. That was a really good primer to all things nuclear. He covered the whole gamut. He talked about fusion, fission, cold fusion, hot fusion, how they compare. Fukushima, he touched on everything in about 30-40 minutes that they had. I highly recommend watching that video. We've got that embedded in our Alien Art to Market Weekly. Also, there's a mention of the Cold Fusion 101 at MIT. Alien Art aircraft that NASA seminar talked about. And then some more chatter about the blacklight demo. Those are some of the highlights from this week in cold fusion. And then no updates yet on blacklight. I did get heads up from them today, finally. That was basically saying they've got a couple orders for these hybrid solar wind trailer things that they build, and that's kind of their first order of business, is fulfilling the existing customers and orders, and they need to take care of that. They were supposed to retrofit their device, their Qmogen, it turns out, to one of the components was getting hot on the circuit board, and they didn't want to be sending that out to customers. So they wanted to address that. It turned out they had to upgrade everything on the circuit board to not overheat, and supposed to hear back from them, and it's just been delay after delay. So apparently they are kind of retrenching into their existing business, which is selling solar panels and turbines and hybrid systems on a trailer that they came up with. And you know, they're $10,000 a whack, if I remember right. Actually, it might be quite a bit more than that for a trailer. And so they had a couple orders. They've got to get those out. Nothing hot going on there. Midtex, or their black box, their Qmogen's kind of taking a back seat. I got a response today from Platinum Invest. Let me read you that message in Skype. This is from the president, Umberto Stranieri. He says, "Dear Mr. Allen, thank you for your message and the proposition to come. Please be assured that your presence is always nice and acceptable, but please try to understand that at the moment we are at a very sensitive moment, and we do not wish to have people or professor that are coming for whatever reason. This will be done in approximately 2 to 3 months. At the moment, only a strict number of people and friends are allowed to come into our research and development production facility. I'm sure that you will understand and look forward to see you in Valencia. Best regards, Umberto." So the invitation that he extended to me a couple of weeks ago apparently had a short window, which has come to a close, and so it's going to be 2 to 3 months before I can go over there. So thanks to all of those of you who have chipped in toward that trip. We keep that in remembrance, and when we can get away in 2 to 3 months, when the door opens again, hopefully we can get over there and see that in person. Remember, these are the guys who claim to have, we showed a car and a plane that would be supposedly powered by their technology, so you could drive as far as you want, fly as far as you want without stopping for fuel. These are the guys that are #1 in our top 5.
At my age, I'd be driving as far as the next bathroom, but that's okay. You know,
yeah, you no longer be limited for fuel stop. It'll be
no longer limited on fuel. It's just, you know, where's the next rest stop?
Yeah. And right now, the fuel tank lasts about as long as the potty break duration, at least on my body when I'm driving cross country. About time for a potty break is when it's time to refuel that car. I got an update from one of our HHO hydroxy guys. I can't disclose more than this, but today I was shown, and I sent a copy of this image to Gary. Some results from an independent laboratory showing over 200 liters per minute at 50 amps in a hydroxy system. It was sampled through an alcohol bath, so the measurement was just the H2 and no steam. All I can say about that one. Moving on, we had 2 magnet motors come across our radar this week. Thomas Engel's magnet motor, a successful German inventor with more than 100 patented inventions to his credit, wants to give this one away. A technology editor of a German newspaper visited the inventor and witnessed his all-magnet motor in operation. I sent them an email asking if we could get in touch with the inventor, and I haven't heard anything back. If any of you have connections or the ability to reach out to Thomas Engel, we would appreciate that. Second magnet motor story, this one is out of Pakistan. On December 14th, Wasif Calhoun posted a video showing rotation with output through a generator that he said was 3.5 kilowatts. It powered 2 heating elements as well as a fan. Quote, "It will be available in the market shortly for personal, industrial, and public uses to produce electrical and mechanical energy," unquote. I started contacting him. He accepted my friend request on Facebook, and then he gave me his email address, and then he sent a message, and it was turned into spam. For some reason, Facebook, when I went to his account, it was shut down. Everything was basically unavailable. So I don't know if he was in his exuberance sending messages out to everyone, and they reported him as a spammer. But that's unfortunate, because that was one of his main methods of getting the information out there. That one actually looks a lot like the Parandev, with the clamshell stators that come in around the rotor. It starts spinning, and the way the things are embedded in the rotor, and the stator very similar to the Parandev, which is not the Parandev. It's not Mike Brady's design. He actually pirated it from a Brazilian patent, we found out. And if you go to parandev.com, which I own, it goes to our PezWiki page, and that's that video that millions of people have seen.
Hey, Sterling, if you hold on for just a second, I'm going to, I had a request out there from the Peanut Gallery. This is the image that Sterling sent me a little bit earlier. Basically what it is, it's, an alley cat, showing an alley cat measurement. Now, I mean, okay, we don't really know what the test rig is, 50 amps at how many volts, we don't know. We really don't know power in, power out. What we have is a very interesting reading on an alley cat. Now, I'm somewhat familiar with the alley cat, and that device, if it's properly set up, does a pretty accurate measurement on straight hydrogen or HHO, whichever. There are settings for it that allow it to accurately read either. We don't even know if the alley cat was properly calibrated for what he was measuring. But, it's one of those tasty little things that you have to consider. Maybe we're seeing something, maybe we're not. You make up your own damn mind.
Thank you.
Sorry, Sterling.
Okay.
I had people out in the audience, calling us full of shit, so, hey.
Yeah, well, I gave that so you could say, yeah, I saw it. We weren't supposed to show that, so.
Oh, really? I guess I'll have to black that out.
Well, it's already done. Anyway, we don't want to get the inventor in trouble.
Well, to be honest with you, Sterling, there's not really that much there to see, so I'm not really sure we certainly didn't give up any secret information, because
no, but
disclosed.
But these inventors, they themselves are under NDA, and even though they're inventors, you can still get in trouble with your team if you start going outside of what you're supposed to be talking about. So, if we're not careful, then we don't get our little leaks and information that we get to be able to, give little teasers once in a while of what's going on.
Well, that one's definitely a teaser, but I don't really see anything there that we can chew on much. So, to whoever it was who sent that picture in, hey, thank you very much for the interesting image. Now, would you please tell us just what the hell it is you're measuring? Anyway, I'm sorry, Sterling. Go ahead.
You'd have to wait on that one.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on. So we had two magnet motors, but I did get that email address from Wasif Calhoun, and looking forward to communicating with him. A Romanian balloon, or Romain, R-O-M-A-I-N, balloon is his YouTube account, showed a Qmogen video, which is, after looking at it carefully, it's a derivation of the Vitaly Shilov from Russia, which is near the top of our listing on our Qmogen page. And he claims to have a 1 and a 2 kilowatt generator available for $3,300 and $4,800. A bit pricey, but supposedly in the market. Tried to get some validation, and the only response I got was, quote, "I'm sorry, but I can't answer those questions now. I'll recontact you in a few weeks." The system involves a motor, alternator, flywheel, battery, inverter, and a self-loop arrangement, classical Qmogen stuff, harnessing the wheelwork of nature, supposedly. So we'll have to see whether this one's legitimate This is the fourth Qmogen that we've seen that allegedly is available for sale. We have not been able to validate any of them as actually being for sale. Still keeping our sniffer to the ground on that. Moving on, Eric Dollard's fundraiser has pulled in about $1,500 so far. They got a $10,000 anonymous donation for their advanced seismic warning system, which is basically a way to tell if an earthquake is coming, similar to how animals can detect it and scooter or skedaddle or whatever that they do. And they're looking to raise, I guess, $2,500, so they're $10,000 to go in their 18 days as of 2 days ago. But that was kind of nice to get that donation.
Wait a minute. Check that math again now. Okay, are 2,500 or 25,000 or
25,000.
Okay, and yeah. they got a big kick in they got a $10,000 contribution, so that's that obviously put them up a notch.
And they had over 5,000.
Okay, so they're still looking for what, about another? They're still about 10 grand out, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. All righty, now I understand that. For a minute there, I'm an old country boy with straw for brains, but I do real good when you start counting money.
And I'm not very good at getting my facts exactly straight. I'm a ballpark kind of guy, forest view. I'm not an expert in any particular topic. I'm a generalist, and I know a lot about a little, or I know a little about a lot, not the other way around. So excuse me when I misstate things. Say 1,200 instead of 12,000, just an order of magnitude off. Moving on to a couple of off-topic things. Geoengineering Watch has a video about chemtrails by Dane Wigington. Excellent overview. Actually shot last summer. It was posted recently on another blog. I was notified of it, put it up in our news. Really need to pay attention to those chemtrails. They're really damaging the planet and could be irreversible if we don't get that thing turned around. It's really, really nasty stuff that they're doing up there, tinkering with the weather and tinkering with our health and the whole biosphere. It is not good stuff. And they've been at it for decades. Most recently, more egregious with the chemtrails that they're doing, but the whole weather engineering and stuff that they're doing. Some really good documentation proving what they're doing, so we can get people paying attention and trying to get this thing stopped. I read an excellent book, Leadership, Call for Americans to Finally Stand Up and Lead, written, co-authored by a friend of mine that I was involved with about 3 decades ago when I was heavily involved in the freedom movement. Easy to read and provides doable solutions. Solve the American decline. And then there was an article about Super Bowl false flag, Treason Bowl letter. I'm not sure if that was legitimate, but the reason I put things like that up is if it was legitimate, one of the best ways to stop things is to shed some light on it, and the little critters start scattering. So that's the reason why I give coverage to things like that. So that is it for this week in free energy. We went a little long this week. Sorry about that. Had some big.
Yeah, you were on a soapbox. There was a couple times there where I wanted to butt in and discuss some of these topics, but I didn't want to eat up too much time because you were running long, man. Chatty Cathy, somebody pulled your string. All righty. Well, any tantalizing little teaser for next week?
Not beyond what I've said.
Well, Sterling Allen, I appreciate you coming by and giving us your presentation. And as always, we'll see you again next week. Good night, sir.
Yeah, have a good week.
Imagine a world in which each home has its own power generator that obtains its energy in such a way that no fuel has to be added. Imagine every vehicle being able to run without ever stopping for fuel. Imagine each appliance having its own power source that never has to be recharged. That is the world of the future. Join with us now as we track our progress towards such a world.
Well, good evening, and welcome to Scarecrow Labs. It's January 30th already. Well, Sterling, sir, this is your time, so I'm going to go ahead and give you full screen. Let's take it away.
All right. Quite a few interesting things this week. Hard to decide what's going to come first as a head story, but I'm going to go with the one we just barely put up about an hour and a half ago. We had a representative from Brazil, my associate Fernando Lins, went down and visited Evolution Energy there in northern Brazil. He's not too far from there, just a few-hour drive. And he was able to witness for himself their 169 kilowatt output is Evolution Energy, and in Brazilian or Portuguese, Evolution, C-O-E-S, which is shun sound in Brazil, and Energia is the name of the company. Back in December 12th, they did an off-grid measurement, because some people were wondering with this over unity that they're getting that maybe they might be tricking the meters, that somehow they're pulling energy from the grid inadvertently, pulling, and the meters were just not picking it up. And so that's when they sent me the data from the tests that they did with a 12-volt battery, getting similar to results of what I just reported. And the company is, we posted photos from Fernando. I should mention I met him, he flew down and met me when I was in Sao Paulo in July of last year. Took me to see his investment banker nephew, super posh bank that we went to. It was one of the high-end buildings in the town. I would imagine, not that I saw a lot of Sao Paulo, but I'm guessing that it's in the upper 1% of the bell curve of sky rises in the city. And it's only, I mean, we're talking, just to look at the photographs, it's 1.5 feet wide, maybe 1 foot high, maybe 2 feet deep. It's small. 200 kilowatts? That's amazing. I got a call from a guy this week that claimed to have a 20 kilowatt system about that size, and we're checking into that. He took it apart. He needs to get it back together so we can go validate. But anyway, that's pretty amazing. That's not quite like the 10 megawatts in 1 cubic foot that Blacklight claims that they'll be able to get when they're done with.
Well, before you get off to Blacklight now, on this one, what is the source of the input energy? Where is the energy coming from, or where are they converting some kind of chemistry or what?
This is solid state, no moving parts on this one. And if I remember right, they've actually got 4 different genres. And
is there a rotating mechanism?
Not in this one. This one is solid state. They
so
call this.
Are they claiming to be receiving cosmic rays, or what? I mean, what do they think is the source of the energy that they're converting?
Here's the description on our PezWiki page. They call it the Earth Electron Captor, or being powered from a 12-volt battery through a 2,000-watt inverter that was being measured as putting out 1,650 watts on the input side, which is over 100 times over unity. That's not bad. He checked for hidden wires, looked over, under, got a tour of the facility, looking for hidden, Tesla coils or whatever, wireless communication of electricity. And get this, the load that they were using for the output was a 3/4 inch iron pipe or rod that was getting very hot. I guess, I don't know if they were throwing it to ground or what, but that's kind of funny. And the clamp on ammeter, in accidentally touching the pipe, got burned, melted a little bit. That's actually the second verification report. The first one we kind of didn't mention. We put links up on the site for Evolution Energy. If you Google PESWiki and Brazil, the first link I think that comes up, really, really nice place. I met him then. We have shared the same birthday, November 30th, had dinner together. And so that's when I met him. And so when we found out about this company in northern Brazil, we're looking for some translators because Nilsson and his associate down there, that don't speak English, and none of their associates do, and so they get all these emails from the English-speaking world, and they're kind of at a loss. And so Fernando raised his hand and said he'd be glad to provide some translation services, and he's been doing a great job. There's been quite a few things going on under the radar down there that I've been aware of. Pretty exciting. We've got them in number 3 position in our top 5, and that's probably conservative. They may pop up to number 1 fairly soon here. None of the 3 are officially in the marketplace where you can plunk down money and buy something, so that we've been able to validate. We've had a number of people claim to have things for sale, but when we asked to get some kind of validation of people going in and buying one and getting one and installing it, that hasn't happened yet. So the top 3 or even 4 are a toss-up right now. They're all neck and neck. And so we've got them in number 3 position. And like I said, I mean, this unit is scalable.